Second. Good morning and welcome. Welcome indeed, yes, to another edition of the Mark Moses Show, podcast edition. That's the new world we live in. Here on a Thursday morning here on the coast. And yes, we're always broadcasting from the Anidjar and Levine Accident Attorney Studios. Take back control of your life. Call them today, 1-800-747-FREE. That's 1-800-747-3733. Anidjar and Levine Accident Attorneys, official sponsor for the Mark Moses Show studios. We also want to thank Walk-On Sports Bistreaux in Vieira, home of the $5 Tito's all day, every day. And yes, we will be there next Thursday night, 1 week from today. We'll be there for my NFL draft watch party. And I do need to go to the Highland Mint later today to pick up our official NFL draft coins will be given away at the draft party. Now, this fine gentleman joins me every Thursday, and he's a big fan of walk-ons. He posted what his favorite things were from the menu. He is Tim Walters, Mr. 321. My man, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, and I just get a smile when I think of walk-ons. It's my 10-year-old daughter's favorite place to eat. Every weekend, it's always, let's go to walk-ons. If you haven't tried their mozzarella logs, I'm sorry. It's one of the greatest fried foods on the planet. They have great dry rub wings. I could sit here and go on about their menu. You can tell that I absolutely love walk-on. So I'm very happy to see that they are sponsoring your show. Sponsors are great, Mark. Anidjar and Levine, they're no longer over my head here. They're over there somewhere.
They're my head.
Yeah, there you go. But again, a great sponsor. If you need legal help, check out Anidjar and Levine. So they're not paying me anything, Mark, and I'm not AI. I'm here for real. I know people see us in podcast land, but nope, I am not computer generated. But as always, thank you for having me.
All right. The mozzarella logs. Is that an appetizer before the main course?
It is, but this isn't your normal mozzarella stick where, mozzarella sticks are finger size. These things are like your wrist, man. And they have the best type of fried breading on them. They come with this really good marinara sauce. And it's just, they are fantastic. They come in fives because they are gigantic. And my wife and I usually get 1.5 while my daughter eats 2 of them. So there's how it splits between 3 people.
Okay, you go with that. Then what do you do for the entree, the main course? After eating all those mozzarella sticks, what do you go with?
Well, if I'm going with fried food, because I usually don't allow myself to have a lot of that, this is my time to splurge. I'm getting those dry rub chicken wings that I talk about. They have this like Cajun seasoning dry rub on them. You get that with a little bit of blue cheese. You sit there and you dip them. And my God, that is my happy place, Mark. I love it. My daughter, she likes the wet buffalo sauce ones. They're the right type of spicy. She doesn't like blue cheese or ranch. So I usually ask them if I could have her blue cheese. That way I have a little bit extra to sauce up my wings. But I love the dry rub, nice and crisp. She loves the buffalo wings. So and my wife, she likes the tacos. They have what are those things called? It's a type of volcano shrimp taco or something. I can't remember the name of it on the top of my head.
Volcano shrimp taco. That's what it's. And then you two go to bed, your wife and you, and then you run a 26-mile marathon after eating all this food. Is that the game plan?
Yeah, well, I usually don't do it the night before my long run, but my wife, she'll get up and do that because she's crazy.
I like it. Yes. So there's the plug for Walk-On Sports Bistreaux. We will be there next Thursday for the NFL Draft Watch Party. We'll start with this then, with the draft. I have been on record as saying this. I love the draft. I watch it every year. I miss the days. I'd be in high school and college where it'd be all day Saturday, like 12 straight hours. And I would sit there and watch it all day long. I'm not really that into the sexiness. There's not a lot of theater to this draft. There's not a lot of, jazz hands. There's not a big names. I'm trying to do all these adjectives for you. I don't think it's a sexy draft, and that's okay. What about you as a guy that covers the Jaguars and you're looking at this draft?
No, I agree. And to correct myself, boom, boom shrimp, not volcano. Boom, boom.
Oh, okay. Boom, boom. Give me that boom boom strip. I've had a long day at work. Make it
There you
happen,
go.
Captain.
So yeah, the Jaguars, they have the number 5 overall pick. And look, most likely they're going to take this defensive tackle out of Michigan. His name's Mason Graham. He's awesome. Most likely Cam Ward from Miami. You're going to see him go number 1 to Tennessee. I think I'd be very surprised if they didn't take him. Cleveland would obviously gobble him up at number 2. Some people want the Jaguars to try and trade up and try and get Travis Hunter, but I don't think they're going to do that. They have 10 picks in this draft. They like their previous general manager, Trent Baalke. He liked to obtain and acquire draft picks. So they have 10, but of course they have their new general manager, James Gladstone, who's only, he looks like he's 13. I think he's 32. Very young guy coming into the draft. They have their new head coach, Liam Cohn. So we'll see what they're going to do. There's also a little bit of thought that they may trade back to number 8 in the draft, because they have their eye on about 4 or 5 different players. So if that number 8 spot's owned by the Panthers, they may want somebody a little bit more specific, including, Austin Genty from Boise State. And so they could trade with the Jaguars to get up and get that running back, because he's projected to possibly go number 6 after the Jaguars. So the Jaguars would probably take the number 8 pick and get a 2nd or 3rd round pick. And then they would have even more picks in the draft. Because like I said, aside from Mason Graham, they're also looking at a couple other guys. One includes another Michigan guy, Will Johnson, who is a very good-looking cornerback. Their secondary was terrible last year. If they weren't 31st in the league, they might have been 32nd. But if they weren't the worst, they were the second worst. It was just bad to watch football-wise for the Jaguars. So they're going to try and get better on the defensive side. They also need an offensive tackle. They need a left guard. They need somebody to protect Trevor Lawrence, but it looks like the best offensive guard is going to go number 4 to New England regardless. So they're not going to get the player that they really want. If they were to move up, they're not going to do it to take an offensive tackle. They're going to do it to get Travis Hunter. So, but I don't think they're going to do that. So for me, it's a lot of fun where the Jaguars are at number 5. There may not be the sexiest players. Obviously, Travis Hunter will be, the quote unquote sexiest pick in there, but there's a lot of really good players who look like they can be good for a long time to come. So the Jaguars, they got a lot to look at, but if they stick with number 5, look for him to go with Mason Graham.
Okay, we're here at Tim Walters, Florida today. We're talking NFL draft to start this great conversation. What if they took Genty at number 5? They just the hell with it. Let's take him.
No, you know what? That is not out of the question. Look, Travis Etienne hasn't necessarily been great for the Jaguars, coming off his worst year last year. They want Tank Bigsby to step into that role. He had an okay year. He didn't fumble as much as he did his rookie year. But look, neither of them are world beaters. If you get Genty in there, a lot of people don't realize he was born in Jacksonville. So this is a guy from the area, and they could do something like that. Their offense certainly didn't light the world up last year. Of course, Trevor Lawrence missed quite a few games between the shoulder injury, the concussion, and everything else he was dealing with. So, of course, the offense wasn't going to be good, but the running game certainly didn't step up and make them any better. So if you have a healthy Trevor Lawrence, if you get Genty, maybe they use one of their, they've got a 2nd round pick and 2 3rd-round picks. They're going to get an offensive guard. They're going to get a left guard in there somewhere. Some people have even wondered, there's a really good wide receiver out of, I think it's Arizona or Arizona State. I'm not going to try and pronounce his last name. It starts with a T, but he's really good. So, after taking Brian Thomas Jr. last year, I don't see them going with a receiver that high. But yes, I think that Genty would be, an option, but I still think that they're looking to get their rush a little bit better. Look, Trayvon Walker played well. Josh Hines-Allen plays well. If you get a 3rd guy in there, they were hoping that Eric Armstead would be that last year, and he wasn't. So if they can get, this Michigan pass rusher, then they're going to be really going after the quarterback next year. They need to get to the quarterback quicker. Quarterbacks had too much time to throw last year. So that defense, they're going to revamp it. And with all of those picks, they're going to try and fill a lot of these needs in the first 4 rounds where they have 6 picks.
We're at Tim Walters, Florida Today newspaper, talking NFL draft. Yes, he's joining me here on the Anidjar and Levine Accident Attorney Studios here for a Thursday. And yes, we are 1 week out from the NFL draft, round 1. Okay. The Jags have been in the top 10, or as I called it yesterday, the NFL draft lottery. That's what it feels like. It's like it's a basketball thing. All right. So 3 years ago, they won the division. So the next spring, they were not in the top 10. And then 17, they went to the AFC Championship game. So the 18 draft, they are not in the top 10. Is every other year since I've known you, have they been in the top 10? Is that what it feels like, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, look, they had the number one pick 2 years in a row, which you
Yeah.
absolutely hate to see that. And of course, they took Josh Hines Allen with a high pick several years back. I believe that was 2019, if I remember, maybe 2020. I'd have to double check the actual years. But yes, they pick up high a lot. But when you look at it, they've really only had, hey, Doug Peterson, kudos to him for getting 2 9-8 seasons back to back for winning records, because they hadn't had back to back winning records in like 20 years. But, they still obviously struggled last year. Peterson's offense uninventive. But yes, they have picked in that high spot pretty much. I would say out of the last 15 drafts, probably 11 or 12 times in the top 10.
Well, you think about, and I feel bad doing this conversation with you, but since 2000, how many winning seasons? And I think the answer is like you could just do it. You said Peterson, the 2 years in a row, 9-8, 2017 AFC Championship game. There was maybe 1 or 2 years with Maurice Jones-Drew and David Garrard as the quarterback. I know you're going to type it now. I know I put you on the spot here. How many winning seasons since 2000? 5, 6? How many is it?
Remember, they started out the 2000s. They weren't bad because they still had Mark Brunell.
Yeah.
But let's see, just looking back on it, though, yeah, in 2000, they had a losing season. They didn't have a winning season until 2005. They went 12-4. They went 8-8. Then they went 11-5. Then let's see, they had losing seasons 1, 2. There's a 500 season, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 out of 9 with only one 500 season. Then it was 2017, and then they were awful 2018, 19. They had the one win in 2020, 3 wins in 2021. So yeah, it's been rough. And then 4-13 last year. So it's tough being a Jaguar. You would hope that. Shad Khan's been a hands-off type of owner, which is what everybody kind of dreams for, as opposed to like Jerry Jones. But he also hadn't had a lot of layers of management, which is one reason why they hired their Hall of Famer, their first ever draft pick, Tony Baselli. So now they've got him in place. They have a young GM in place. They have a young coach in place. But these guys are all from, very highly touted coaching trees. So, Baselli is going to be that extra layer. They hadn't had that team president since Tom Coughlin. I think, what year did they get rid of him? 2019. So it had been quite some time where the GM was just kind of the everything. They really trusted Trent Baalke, but that with a couple of young guys as GM and coach now, they needed that little bit more of experience. So, it'll be fun to see what Baselli can do with these guys.
We're at Tim Walters, Florida today. All right, I made a comment the other day, and I want your thoughts as a guy that covers the AFC South. I said the division is overall, if you're just looking for national content, like what is the best with the most headlines division to talk about, and then what's the least most interesting division? I think it's the AFC South nationally. I think it's the most irrelevant, and I get it. We talk Jaguars, Titans have the first pick. You're not sure what the Colts are going to do. Texans, hey, they've won the division 2 years in a row. But I'm sorry, nationally, if you're ranking, you're stacking them all up, all 8 divisions. Nationally, I think it's the most boring and most irrelevant division. The floor is yours, Congressman from Central Florida. I will let you talk now.
Yes, I mean, look, I can't disagree with you. In fact, since Peyton Manning left that division, it's probably been that way. And what year was that? 2015, maybe. So it's kind of a decade of irrelevance for the AFC South. And name the best players in that division. Okay, maybe CJ Stroud. Maybe a couple of the receivers there in Houston. Everybody wanted Trevor Lawrence to be the next coming. He's only been, rather mundane, average. The Colts, they took a super freak in Anthony Richardson, who I kept telling everybody, no one would listen. It doesn't matter how good an athlete you are. He was not a good quarterback, and it showed in the NFL. You can't fix when somebody kind of lacks that talent, no matter what type of athlete they are. Plus, he had only started a handful of games between college and high school, which is crazy. And then, you look at Tennessee, who used to kind of be the steady Eddie. They'd win the division. They weren't great. Their quarterback was average. Then he left, and it's been just kind of, since Tannehill, you're trying, several different people back there. It just hasn't worked. So, if they take Cam Ward, they're hoping that's going to fix things. But even with Ward, it's not like you're going to look at that and go, wow, look at what's going on in the FC South. No, it's just somebody's going to win. Somebody has to win. And no offense to the Buccaneers, I think the NFC South would probably be next after the AFC South. They're kind of in a similar thing. New Orleans has not been good since Breeze left. Tampa Bay has won 5 years in a row. They've made the playoffs.
Yeah.
They haven't won it every year. They've also made it as a wild card. But then, the other teams in the division, the Carolina Panthers are just dreadful. So it's like, and the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, so the two Southern conferences, which by rights, the South is football territory, not the NFL.
It's a great answer. It really is. Yeah, the NFC South has not been the same since Drew Brees. And look, if you're a Buccaneers fan, you love it. You love the other teams are terrible. And I've said this to every Buccaneers fan. This Bucs team this last fall had no business winning this division. But the other teams were so bad that they just found a way to get in. That's what happened. Tennessee is going to take Cam Ward at number 1. And I think that's good. I want your thoughts because I think it's a perfect situation. There's not going to be a lot of big media pressure. It's in a kind of a boring division. There's no high expectations. Like if he went to the New York Giants, they'd be like, it'd be a circus every 5 seconds. I think he's going to the perfect situation. Here's how I'll put it. I like him, and I think he helped a Miami Hurricanes team go from 7-5 to be a relevant team that should have made the playoffs. I think he is that good. I don't love him though. And I look at last year's draft, where would he have gone? 4th quarterback taken? What would it have been compared to all those quarterbacks? I like him. I don't love him. What about you with Cam Ward?
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously going to elevate them. I think he's going to be better than Will Levis.
Oh, yeah.
That you see why he now fell to the 2nd round a couple of years ago, because he has his flashes of greatness, but just not a sustainable quarterback in the NFL. The only thing that I don't like for Cam Ward, and we'll see what else with the Titans do in the draft, his lead receiver will be Calvin Ridley, which we've seen that in Jacksonville. Can be good, can be bad. They've got a decent young tight end in Okonkwo. So he's got some things to work with. Their running back, Tony Pollard, he's okay. So unfortunately, Cam Ward's not coming in where he's got some really good pieces in place. But, they've got a new head coach. They've got some decent pieces. They often have a good defense there in Tennessee, which often keeps them in the game. So, if he can just his first year get his feet wet, I think he's going to be like what the Washington Commanders had this past year? No. But, I think he can be a very good quarterback in this league, but now they got to start getting pieces around him.
You're absolutely right. We're here at Tim Walters' Florida Today newspaper. I don't know if you saw this story. So the quarterback that went number 2 last year to the Washington Commanders. Yes. This Jaden Daniel guy, right? Or no, is it Daniels? I always get this confused because there's a Daniels and then I think it's Daniel. So, or is it Daniels? This is like
He's got the S.
This is like the Bill Pullman, Bill Paxton thing. Which one is which? It's Daniel.
He's got the S.
All right. So there was this NFL thing I saw from the NFL website where he's in Paris, France, where I've been as well 3 times, buddy. So he's got a photo of the Hail Mary play against the Bears, right? Where Washington won. And that caption says, "Shouldn't this hang in the Louvre?" And I got so angry. Okay. I know I beat this down like a dead horse nonstop. I'm never going to let this down. People are going to troll me for the next 70 years of my life where, hey, Mark, remember that time your Bears didn't go back on the Hail Mary play? It'll never end for me. Troll me forever, Tim. I'll never get over that play.
Well, this goes back to what you and I had talked about many years ago, and you've shot me down. You won't allow us to divorce our NFL teams. Yours stinks. Mine stinks. Can't I have a new team?
No, it's too late. It's too late. Okay, here's the story for you. So my brother tells me the other day that he's at baseball practice with his son. Now, let's clarify this. My son was playing. His son is playing, not the other way around. It's not his baseball practice and the children are watching him. No, he's too old for that. So he's a parent. His little kid is at baseball practice. So he tells me this story. He can't get over it. So they're all in a circle, and the coach says, All right, we're going to go around to the team. Tell us who your favorite baseball team is. And this one I thought of you. So all the kids are there with their dads or their moms. And the kids are going around, I love the Cubs. Yay, Cubs. Cubs, Cubs. I think he once said New York Yankees because there's always one guy like that. So they're going Cubs, 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 Cubs. They get to my nephew and his father, my brother. And my nephew looks at his dad and says, like, kind of gives him the Zen look. Do I have to say White Sox? Do I have to do it? Please. I don't want to get embarrassed. Please. And he's like, White Sox. And all the kids are like, huh? And I felt bad for my nephew, but here's my counter argument to this. The Cubs aren't great either. Yeah, if you're signing up to be a Cubs fan, there's a lot of pain as well. I don't think either. I think it's poison or getting shot. Like, I don't think there's if you're going to make a choice here, there's going to be a lot of pain either way. What are your thoughts as a Cubs fan on this subject?
The Cubs are the second all-time winning franchise in MLB history. We went over this recently too. Go back and watch that episode. So yes, there's also been a lot of winning. Okay, so we went through a 106-year drought without winning a World Series. Big deal. One's going to be coming home this year or next year. They're playing pretty well. But I do feel bad for your nephew. What he should have looked up with less embarrassment, maybe he could have said the Marlins or the Rays. But yeah, he shouldn't have to be forced to say White Sox. That's being forced upon him, Mark. None of my sports teams were forced upon me.
Okay, let's do this then. Who are your sports teams? Go for it.
All right, so the Chicago Cubs, I grew up watching them on WGN in the 80s here in Florida. We didn't have the Marlins. We didn't have the Rays. My other option was the Atlanta Braves, and I just enjoyed watching the Cubs broadcast because Harry Carey made things entertaining. And then I played second base in Little League. I gravitated toward Ryne Sandberg. He's still my favorite player of all time. That's the Cubs. As far as colleges, everyone knows I went to the University of Florida, so I am a big Gators fan. I was there when they won their first football national title. So there's always a place in my heart for the Gators. In basketball, we will talk about this team in a little bit. The Orlando Magic. I've been on with them since the ground floor, since they announced they would have a team, since they started playing in '89. I love the Orlando Magic. Now, football, the NFL's, this one's a little trickier. I'm a New York Jets fan. I honestly still don't really recall how I became a Jets fan. I was born in New York. It's the only allegiance. And when I was a real little kid, I honestly believe I liked the green and their green helmets, and they were from New York. So I became a Jets fan only because I was probably like 4 and liked the color green, and I liked that I needed a New York team.
You make it sound like you don't even remember. This is how bad the franchise is. You just said on record, I don't even remember why I'm a Jets fan. You don't know how it started. Did you get abducted by aliens? I saw some news conference with RFK Jr. talking about autism. He'll have another press conference. We're going to get to the bottom of why Tim Walters is a Jets fan. This is top priority for the government. We need to know this.
Yeah, anyone with Jets fandom or White Sox fandom, it's a tragedy.
It is a tragedy.
That's the word he used. A tragedy.
Oh, man. You don't even remember. What an answer. I give you everything with that. That is an incredible answer. I know what. Oh, go on.
It's my earliest sports allegiance. And again, I remember liking Al Toon. Does anyone remember Al Toon, or am I the only one that remembers Al Toon, the wide receiver? I remember ridiculous early things from this team. And I rooted for them in high school, and people would wonder why. I rooted for them in college, and people would wonder why. And now that I am a fully formed adult with my own child, but my daughter, to be fair, she loves the NFL. She is a crazy football fan, actually. She likes the Jacksonville Jaguars. She loves Trevor Lawrence. So for that reason, I hope he does well, only for my child.
You know what I respect about your daughter is she made a choice. I am not going to root for your terrible franchise, Dad. But then at the same time, picked another terrible franchise that can't win. She had an open door to do whatever she wanted. No, I'm going with this team. Well, I respect her for this. She could have been a Cowboys fan. No. But you know what's funny about that answer if you think about it in real time, Cowboys don't win either. You shouldn't. I've said this before. All right, if you're a space alien, or let's say you're an immigrant, you're coming to this country, as I say on record, legally. All right. I know the times we live in. So you come here and you're like, all right, I want to root for an NFL team. Who should I pick? My suggestion would be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They make the playoffs every single year. They have a chance. They have a winning record. They won a Super Bowl in the last 5 years. Players want to go there. It's in Florida. Not a lot of high pressure. You don't have to take on the teams in the NFC East. Go root for the Buccaneers. Why would you root for the Cowboys if you were not born in the 70s or 80s? If you were born in the 2000s or now, why would you root for them under any circumstance? Explain it to me.
Well, but that's also, Mark, that's part of the thing about the parity of the NFL, why I like the salary cap as opposed to what Major League Baseball does, where the Dodgers and Yankees just buy everybody and, play each other in the playoffs or in the World Series all the time. So with the NFL, it does change a lot, but you're right. The Buccaneers, if you remember, though, in the 80s and 90s, holy cow, they were bad. They were as bad could get. And then they got rid of the creamsicle orange, became pewter and silver, and then all of a sudden won a Super Bowl. So maybe they just needed to change their clothes. But no, they've been a well-run franchise for a long time. So there's that part of it. But with the NFL, if you pick a team, they might not be good in 5 years from now. I was trying to steer my daughter to the Cincinnati Bengals because I love Joe Burrow. I love watching that guy play. And I think he's going to be fantastic for a long time. Think of how many people became Colts fans, not because they love the city of Indianapolis, but because Peyton Manning was not only awesome, but he was such a wonderful personality. A lot of people gravitated toward the Patriots growing up, like many people did toward the Yankees. Oh, I like the winner. But, there are a lot of teams with these guys who are not only good players, but have these type of personality types. And because of the way the draft works, every team has a chance to try and get some of these guys. So who knows? Maybe we, Cam Ward, even though he seems like a pretty low-key guy, maybe 5 years from now with some media training, he'll have the type of winning smile and goofy comments like Peyton Manning, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I wish I was there in your house when you were you're telling your daughter, how about those Cincinnati Bengals? Don't you like that Joe Burrow? Come on. Don't you like this? No, bro. She's like, no, Joe Burrow all day, baby. That's what she said to you, right? In my voice, just like how I talk. That's what she said to you.
I'll tell you two things that she said, Mark. Number one, she said, Joe Burrow, oh, he's handsome. And I was like, oh, God, no. And then number two, she likes big cats too. So Jaguars, Bengal Tigers, Panthers, she's a fan of. So she has her order of favorites. So number one is the Jaguars. Number two is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And number three is the Cincinnati Bengals. So, and she also likes the Detroit Lions because, again, big cat theme. So that's how she has kind of formed her fandom.
Is there a team of all those teams you said where you could not be able as a journalist to cover them because you're too much of a homer? I am on record as saying the Chicago Bears. I can't cover it. No, because I would just write puff pieces all day. How great we are. We're going to win the division. I can't do it. What about you, Tim?
See, I'm the opposite. If I was, working for the New York Daily News or the New York Post, all I would do, and they do this anyhow, so they don't need another voice doing it, I would just rip the Jets apart. And the foolish owner, Woody Johnson. And what are they doing? What is the plan? Hire me as the GM. I guarantee I could do a better job than the clowns that have been running that place. I have a football acumen and 2.5 decades in the business of sports journalism. I know a lot of stuff, hey, give me a shot because nothing else is working for those guys. So yes, Mark, I would be the ultra critical guy. Like with the Jaguars, it's just like, hey, this is a team I cover. They're in Florida. I can be fair about them. But yes, if I was a New York Jets reporter or columnist, I would be the guy probably ripping them all the time until they did something good. I'd love to write a good piece about the Jets. But when was the last time they gave you the opportunity to do that?
That sounds like the article right there. What you like, literally, the headline would be, give me a reason to write a good article about the team. And then you would go over all the faults. That's it. We are joined here by Tim Walters of the Florida Today newspaper. Yes, and we are here broadcasting from the Anidjar and Levine Accident Attorney Studios. Take back control of your life. Call them today, 1-800-747-FREE. That's 1-800-747-3733. Also, don't forget our NFL Draft Watch Party's coming up next Thursday night at Walk On Sports Bistro there in Vieira. Okay, we did not prep this question, but I've been wanting to ask you this question for the last 4 days. I want to get your initial reaction, and this is going to be a very controversial one. You do an amazing job here in Brevard County on the Space Coast, covering NASA stuff, and constantly people are going back and forth. Did those women in the Amazon rocket, the Blue Origin, whatever it's called, okay, now you got serious. Okay. Did they actually go to outer space, or were they still in Earth's orbit? What happened exactly, Tim? I need to know.
No, and that's the thing. People don't quite understand. So, for instance, when the first two people, Yuri Gagarin and Alan Shepard, when they first went to space in what year was that? 60, I believe. Yeah, 61, whatever year it was. So Yuri Gagarin went up 3 weeks before Alan Shepard. But here's the thing: they went up, they broke the plane of orbital space. That is where you are leaving the Earth. And then they came down, right? So we were the first country, and this was oh boy, his name's escaping me, Mark. I've had a total brain letdown.
Oh no.
He was the first to orbit the Earth. Orbit the Earth. So what that means is he went up to outer space just like Alan Shepard, but instead of stopping and coming down, he orbited the Earth, Mark. So that is the difference. So what these women did was they essentially did what Alan Shepard or Yuri Gagarin did. They broke the plane of space. They were in what's called LEO, L-E-O, lower Earth orbit, which is where our satellites and other things like that reside. So they got to go outside the plane of the Earth. They were in lower Earth orbit. They were looking down. They could certainly disprove that the Earth is not flat and water is just not falling off the sides of it. Sorry, conspiracy theorists. But that is what they did. They did not orbit the Earth, which is also in outer space, but these 6 women were in outer space.
I appreciate you answering that question because I know you're looking at the name right now. I know. I can see it on camera.
Because I've interviewed him, Mark. I've interviewed him, so it's...
I'm sorry you're on camera while you're
trying John Glenn.
John Glenn, there you go. Hey, again, let me tell you something. Tim Walters knows the space program. He has done documentaries. He has done articles, everything. I was at an establishment in the O'Galley Art District a couple weeks ago, and I met someone who does a space show on YouTube. And I told this lady, very nice lady, I said, you need to get Tim Walters on. Of anyone here in Brevard County, if you can't get the actual astronaut, get Tim Walters. So I give you recommendations after a couple cold ones. I hope you know that. Okay.
Well, Mark, I appreciate that. And yes, it kills me that I forgot John Glenn because we did a big interview with him probably about 2 or 3 years before he passed away. He was so awesome. He was up in his office in Ohio. He was a senator up there, but just a great guy. But again, yes, orbited the Earth. Mark, here's the question for you, because I would love to do this. Would you want to at least go up and be in space, or even better, orbit the Earth, or are you good here on the ground?
All right, so here's what I understand, and that is a great question. We're Tim Walters. So they came back down, whenever this was, Monday? I don't even know what day it is after a while. They come back down. Were they not even wearing helmets? I'm confused by this. Like, they get out of their space shuttle, whatever the hell it was. Their hair looks perfect. I don't get that either. What? Is space travel easier now? Wouldn't you like if I've told you this, at Epcot Center at Disney World, there is the Mission to Mars ride, right? That was the most intense thing. I thought my heart was going to rip out of my rib cage, and I was screaming. I almost started crying. All right. I couldn't handle the ride at Epcot Center. How am I going to go up into space? I'm confused by this. Then you see that on TV, and they acted like they went on the Small World ride at Disney. Can you explain that part to me? Because I'm confused.
Now, maybe one of the 6 of them was a makeup artist and fixed their hair after the helmets came off. But seriously, that Mission to Mars ride, that is the takeoff on that is intense. Oh. Like that 20 or seconds or so where you are lifting off. And, It's more intense than that. I remember astronaut Winston Scott, who flew on multiple space shuttle missions and used to be a professor at Florida Tech. And I remember him telling me, when you take off, so you're looking upward like you do in Mission to Mars. So you're down, you're looking up, and you start taking off. And once the G's kick in, he said it's like having a full-grown gorilla sitting on your chest.
Yes.
So you're going up, you've got this intense pressure, and he said you want to look, but if you start to look to the side, you're going to have to fight to get your head back to the center. So you don't want to do that. But once you get past that initial liftoff and you get into outer space, then you're kind of floating and free, and you feel it all lift off of you. I remember, William Shatner, he did one of these flights, and he's still, to this day, I believe he was the oldest person to go to space. He just turned 95, by the way. Happy birthday, William Shatner. But I remember he said something that really surprised me. Yeah. People asked him how he felt, and he said he felt profound sadness.
Yes.
He said he looked back at the Earth and saw a fragile place that we were destroying, because he looked out into the cosmos and he saw nothing, emptiness, lifelessness, and this little bit of Earth we have here, we are absolutely destroying. So I was thinking he would say something inspirational, and in a way that is, Mark. It is very sad, and this is a sports show. I don't want to bring people down, but I understand. Right. I understand what William Shatner was saying, and when you hear somebody of that, reputation saying that, that's something big. And so to see these 6 ladies go up and people, oh, they didn't really go to space. No, they did. And they had to do a lot of prep for this. It wasn't just like they threw them in a capsule and off they went, because if they did that, I don't want to say what would happen. Somebody probably soil themselves. They could pass out. In some cases, they tell you not to close your eyes. Did you ever close your eyes on that Mission to Mars ride, Mark? Because the first time I did it, I was having trouble with it, and I closed my eyes, and it makes you spin even worse. So they tell you don't do that. So there were some other techniques. Like the second time I did it, my brother-in-law, who was in the Air Force, he told me, it's kind of like in Die Hard. He wasn't kidding. Make fists with your toes and just kind of press down on the ground during that liftoff. He had been in multiple G flights, when he was doing his training, and he said you learn to do all sorts of weird things to learn how to handle that. And eventually you do after doing it a lot. But these aren't people that did it a lot, but they did it enough to where they could blast off and do it. But no, they didn't just throw them in a capsule and launch them up.
Okay. Astronauts.
Yes, I would say they're astronauts. People that go to space are, to me, astronauts, right? I would want to be called an astronaut if I went to space. Now, are there different positions for astronauts? Of course, you have pilot and navigator and payload specialist and all of these different types of specialists. But to me, an astronaut is a person who's gone to space. So if you don't call them astronauts, can you call Alan Shepard an astronaut? Well, he eventually went to the moon. So yes, you could call him an astronaut. But had he only done that one thing, could he have been called an astronaut? I say yes.
All right. This opens up. I know we're going long here, but I appreciate coming on. We're here with Tim Walters of the Florida Today. I think what rubs people the wrong way is you have people that train their whole lives to become astronauts and all the training and to be a and take this seriously. And it just the way it's like a Katy Perry. Oh, I spent all this millions of dollars. I get to go to space. I'm trying to think of something similar that, like, okay, and I will go. I'm going to go here. I've put in 20 professional years to be a broadcaster, right? And like to really work on this. And this is my career and living. And now it's like, I recorded some on my phone. I'm a broadcaster as well. What? What's happening here? That's where I think.
I can give you a good analogy for something like this using your job as an example, but not somebody talking into their phone. Look, there are people who have no broadcasting whatsoever. Maybe it's an athlete. Okay. Those are people who have trained to play the game, but then they get given a microphone and it's like, here, you're now a broadcaster. Yes, they bring a unique perspective to it and they should be some sort of analyst, but those guys are now getting the top jobs where they are leading the broadcasts. Another example, well, like you said, I guess the long and short of it is if you have money and if you're somebody with some sort of status, it's like anything else in life. You're going to get something that other people who train hard may not ever get in their life, even though they're more qualified. I mean, that just doesn't go for space. It just doesn't go for sports or broadcasting. It goes in a lot of different things. And you see people who, show up. Another good example was when the Ball family, remember LeVar Ball and his sons and stuff. Okay, here's the father of a basketball player, but because he's got a big mouth, he gets to come into a wrestling ring and stand in the center of thousands of people as if he's something special. Would that have happened to, how many wrestlers train to become wrestlers and never get that spotlight? So it could be said of anything. So you know what? Those women, obviously, Gail King, a very wealthy person, Katy Perry, a very wealthy person. All of these people have status and wealth, so they get things that unfortunately the rest of us don't get. So you can be jealous and you can go on social media, but it's not going to change. So I try not to let myself worry too much about it.
My suggestion for everyone, especially you're here in Central Florida, go to the Kennedy Space Center. Go see it in person. And I know you've been there many times. I mean, because you've worked different events, you've seen these launches. I'm just trying to give some love to all these astronauts who are like, they trained their whole lives and how scary it is. And you talk about those people in the 1960s. I always make this joke with you where it's like, this phone I'm holding right here has more power and technology than the whole space program when we first went into outer space. It blows my mind, Tim. How about you?
I mean, back then, essentially, Mark, they were just strapping you to a bomb and launching you upward with very little guidance and navigation. And, it's just the primitive nature of it. I mean, my God, nowadays, we certainly test a lot more. And back then, we lost a lot of rockets that didn't have people on it. But unfortunately, we lost a lot of astronauts and a lot of test pilots who are doing this stuff. So, it's amazing what we were able to accomplish. I know there are conspiracy theorists that say, oh, we never went back then because, we couldn't have done it with the technology. Well, we did. We did. And, I did a documentary on the Apollo program, and there were 400,000 people that worked on this program. You're telling me there wasn't some sort of person on the inside or a whistleblower or a document that exists that shows that this was all fake? So, no. I remember when Buzz Aldrin punched that guy. His name was Bart Sabrell, who was badgering him, and then he lured Buzz to what he thought was a different interview, and the guy shows up, starts to badger him. Buzz punched him in the face, and the cops didn't do anything about it, which I think was great because that was a false pretense. So that's kind of a little bit of a tangent, but yes, these astronauts are special people. You go to the visitor complex, you can listen to astronauts actually talk. Check the schedules, go see one. They are amazing. But the one thing, Mark, in 2012, when they were going to open up the visitor complex's shuttle exhibit where Atlantis is now laid, I remember I got to put on a hard hat and an orange vest, and I got a behind the scenes look. And when that curtain opens up, and you see that shuttle and the size of it and the scope of it. And Mark, I have been blessed. I have sat in 2 space shuttle orbiters. I sat in Atlantis and I sat in Endeavour. And when I sat in Endeavour, the controls, the thingies were all still on. It was lit up. It was 2 days before it was powered down for good. And I tell you, it is an awesome feeling. It was so packed in the little cockpit, and you were in this aircraft that is so huge that the airplane at the airport looks like, a little, puddle jumper. It is incredible. So yes. I could sit here and talk about space all day, Mark, probably more than sports. So I appreciate you bringing this up.
I wanted to bring you on to talk about this because you, like you said, you've done documentaries, you've written articles, you've covered space launches. I'm with you. I will say this, as an adult male, the 2 times in my life, I actually got emotional. And my sister laughs at me, but I don't care. I was at the Atlanta Aquarium. Have you ever been there before?
I have not.
Okay. So they have. Is it like a whale shark?
Well, yep, I've heard about that.
Oh my God. This thing walks. I should say walks by like it's a mammal. No, it's a whale shark a mammal? I'm confused here now. Oh, I got questions. I got even more questions now. So it wasn't even a full grown Wait, all right, you're typing. This is what I love about being on video with you. Now you're typing, is whale shark a mammal? No. Is whale a
No,
mammal?
whale shark is not a mammal.
No, a dolphin is a mammal, right? Yes. Okay. I'm gonna fail 5th grade if I don't get these questions right. So it wasn't even a full grown whale. Okay. And it's in this tank. When it swam by me, I got emotional because it was like seeing a dinosaur. You could not believe how big this thing was in the water. And they're like, "Oh, hey, Mark, you can come swim with it if you want." No, I'm not Noah from the Bible where I'm going to get, or I have been butchering so many facts. It's Job from the Bible. Noah's in the ark. Job goes into the whale. Okay. The Passover food is killing me all this week. My brain is discombobulated with the facts. Okay. So the whale made me emotional, started getting teared up because I couldn't believe how big that thing was. The second is the Kennedy Space Center. Exactly what you're saying, buddy. Where you're on that tour and they talk about the shuttles, and you're right. It opens up, the curtains opens up. You see that bad boy. And my brain thought, all right, I'm Captain Kirk. I'm going to fly that baby around the solar system. And I'm going to take on the Romulans and the Klingons, and I'm going to be the captain of the Starship Enterprise. That's exactly what it felt like as well. So, yeah, Job's in the whale, not Noah. Noah's in no.
I didn't have to look that one up, Mark, but that's all right. I love to tell this story. So after return to flight, after we lost the space shuttle in 2003, they had one flight in 2005, and then I believe they had 2 in 2006. That's when I picked up. I wasn't covering the first return to flight launch, but after the second one on, I was doing different things for the remaining, I think it was 24, 25 shuttle missions, right? I'll never forget the first time I went out to Kennedy Space Center and to our what's called the Florida Today Blockhouse. We have a little media house right across the street from the vehicle assembly building. It's 3.5 miles from where the shuttle takes off from 39A. And so I get out there and they take me over to the media building. They want to, Todd Halverson, who's in their Reporters Hall of Fame there. He was such a great person to learn under. He takes me over there, and these guys are serious, but they also kind of joke with you. So I'm talking to their security person and he's like, "Oh, first launch out here." I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "We just want you to know that if the shuttle were to blow up on the pad, there would be Volkswagen-sized pieces of flaming debris launching at the buildings around it." And I was like, and he's like, "But yeah, it's not going to happen." But it was like, oh, because if you remember, Todd was also there in 1997. He went on the range side, so Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, one of the smaller launch pads. One of the rockets blew up right after takeoff, rained debris down. You got to look this up. I believe it was a Delta 2 maybe, but Google 1997 and rocket explosion, Cape Canaveral. And this was before they really knew the distance. Like there were people, they were all safe, but the cars in the parking lot all got destroyed by all of this stuff. And there were huge pieces of rocket debris falling down onto people's vehicles. So, this stuff is dangerous. It looks beautiful. SpaceX has made it routine where they send up several per week. People see them blow something up in Texas. Those are tests. They mean to blow some of those up. Now, when they fly over Florida, that's dangerous. That's why we put the Space Center where it is, so it goes over the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah. That's a discussion for another day. But anyhow, this stuff is, but it's also amazing. It's wonderful. And what we are doing, people question why we do it. Well, take William Shatner's words. Think about what we're doing to the Earth. As a species, we have to exist. So just like people cross the ocean, not knowing what was there, we are going into the cosmos, not knowing what's there, but we as a species will persist. I will step down off my soapbox.
I appreciate that, Spock. That was very, very insightful. I'll end with this with you. Okay. You can actually do it. I'm amazed. I can't. Look, you're the man. All right. My favorite part was, okay, I'm going to say this the best way I can, where I don't butcher the facts like I just did with my biblical verses, trying to talk about stuff. Okay. And he sent his girlfriend up into space. Okay. And it was cost millions and millions of dollars to do this. And he's trying to look as cool as possible. He is. So when the shuttle lands, This is my favorite. This is comedy 101. And this is how I know, but I believe there is a higher power to mess with us. So they land. It lands perfectly. Everyone's fine. I'm happy everyone is fine. They came down. Then they pushed open the door and they go, no, 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 no. So then they had to close the door again and then pretend that Jeff Bezos opened the door because he's the man that got them to outer space. Love it. I love it so much because you can plan things as much as you can. No. You can have all the money you want in the world. No. There's always going to be that moment where they weren't supposed to open the door. I love it, Tim. Did you see this video when it happened?
Yeah, in fact, you could say it was a real trip. Boom. All right. Thank you, folks. Thank you.
That's my favorite part. Just favorite. I swear. If you and me went to outer space, we'd come back down. Our hair would be all over the place. I don't think I'd come out with like a flower and then like, oh, I love. No. I'd be like, all right, get me out of here. I'd probably be vomiting in the street. And then I'd just be like, all right, someone give me a beer. Like, I think that'd be my response. And by the way, when they interview me, I'd be dropping F-bombs like crazy. Just like, I can't believe I did that. Why did Tim make me do this? What would your reaction be as we fall down?
Well, like I said, I'd come back. This would still be perfect. This is almost like Lego hair, you know. I've been out in the rain. Everyone always wonders, and I don't use a lot of product. I just use enough to make sure my hair isn't poofy because I actually have poofy hair. So anyhow, I would come down looking like this exactly. I'd probably have a big smile on my face. You might get down and make out with the ground the way Katy Perry did. What was going on there? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Happy to be, you know what? There's somebody who didn't enjoy the takeoff and re-entry, but
yeah, you would show up. Okay. I'd get off. I would somehow smoke a cigarette, even though I've never smoked before in my life. Like, all right, I feel awful. I can't believe we did that. You said you'd have perfect hair. You'd be great. You take out out of your shirt like this. You have this well-prepared speech. It's the most beautiful speech I've ever heard. And that's why you're the captain of this 11-minute journey. That's exactly what would happen. Exactly what it is. Okay. Oh, all right. I was going to talk Universal Studios with you. I was. But we started talking space, which was a better conversation. So what we should do is next week, let's break down the new park at Universal Studios. Even though neither of us have gone, we will break it down. And by the way, I brought this for show and tell. Since you love Transformers so much, every time I go to Universal, I get a bad guy. So I have this guy right here just for you, Mr. Megatron. Okay? That's right. And people are like, why don't you get a good guy? No. It's got to be a bad guy every time. Okay? That's how we go. Look, you're upset. I could tell. You don't like Megatron, do you? He's a bad guy. You don't
I
like
love
that.
Megatron. I'd love to have one. I'm just jealous now.
He is Tim Walters of the Florida Today newspaper. My man, thanks for your help. And I always appreciate coming on. Have a great weekend.
I appreciate it, Mark. And would you stop?
Great stuff with Tim Walters. Hey, we'd like to thank Walk On Sports Bistreaux for being a great podcast partner of the Mark Moses Show. Don't forget $5 Tito's all day, every day at Walk On's Vieira. And also, we are broadcasting from the Anidjar. Hey, if you get into a car accident, truck accident, slip and fall, here's what I would do. Call my friends in Anidjar and Levine Accident Attorneys. That's Mark Anidjar and free consultation, and don't settle for 1-800-747-FREE. Anidjar Accident Attorneys. Have a great day. I'll see you Moses Show.